Welcome back to Tech Talk. I'm Greg Schaefer. Happy to have you here. I've been in technology for some time. I like to equate it to the beginning of the days of the internet. In fact, when I first started, there wasn't such a thing as twisted pair Ethernet, and that's been a long time ago. Seen a lot of changes during that time. And so has my guest. Peter Gregory joins us for this segment. He has authored many books, and he is a technology and cybersecurity and privacy leader. And he is also part of the advisory boards for the University of Washington and Seattle University. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Greg, thanks for having me on. It's great to see you and be here.
So I started out by talking about the fact that I've been involved in this wonderful world of technology for some time, and I know you have too. So why don't we start by why and how, just a couple of minutes, why and how you decided to enter into the tech field?
Greg, this goes back to my early teen years when I became an electronics hobbyist, inspired in part by my uncle Clark Harris of Los Angeles, who was an amateur astronomer and an inventor. So electronics was my passion all through high school. I went to the University of Nevada, Reno, and was in an electrical engineering bachelor's program and discovered computer programming there. This was in the mid 70s. People didn't have computers at home. I mean, nobody did, right? So programming classes, more electronics and electrical engineering classes. And I just really fell in love with just everything about computers and made a pivot to that. And that's been my career from then till now. I've worn pretty much every hat in IT, or MIS as it was originally called, and
Right.
my career has gone from then till now, and here we are today after 40 plus years of working in IT, engineering, and security leadership for about the last 22 or 23 years.
And it's really amazing to think about the changes that have occurred in the tech field since then. We take for granted the whole internet ecosystem, if you will. We never had anything like smartphones like that. They weren't even really thought of unless you think about maybe the old Dick Tracy comics, which had the wristwatch camera phones, which I remember back in the day as a child, like thinking that'll never happen. It's amazing to see what's happened over the last 40 years plus. During that time, what are in your eyes, what are some of the more significant changes that have occurred in technology, and also how that has affected our lives?
I'd say, Greg, I mean, big picture, I think the biggest change that we've seen in our lifetime is just simply the miniaturization of computing power. One of my first jobs was a student employment operating Nevada Reno's CDC 6600 mainframe, which was a supercomputer designed by Seymour Cray in the 60s, and Nevada Reno had that machine for 10 or 12 years or more. And today, this little thing here in my hand has vastly more computing power than that very massive system that I operated in 76, 77.
Really amazing to see how the technology has evolved. I remember seeing an article at one point in time which mentioned that the space shuttle, which of course is a technology which is now obsolete, but even back then it was new technology in the 80s that they were having problems sourcing materials for. If I remember correctly, they were looking for 8088 chips. They couldn't find any or many to keep it sustained up through the 90s and the 2000s. How do you think that, though, this miniaturization has affected our lives? You mentioned the iPhone and how that has such greater computer power. I always think about I always get back to space. I always think about like the moon lander too, that our iPhones or our smartphones rather have more computing power than the entire Apollo spacecraft did. How do you feel that that's affected our lives?
It's Greg, technology has made our lives far more convenient. I mean, again, from this thing, I can run my entire life from my smartphone if I had to. I can pay my bills. I can pay my taxes. I can, you know, order and purchase anything and everything I need. I can be a journalist. I can, I have access to, virtually all of the knowledge that mankind has accumulated and documented from the beginning of written history to this very day. It is all at our fingertips instantly.
And you've been a lover of technology. You talk about technology frequently. You write about technology, having authored more than 50 books on cybersecurity. How did you get started in authoring books?
The way I got into publishing, Greg, is that back in the early '90s, I was an employee, a consultant for World Vision. They were upgrading all of their back office computing from mainframes to Unix and Informix, relational database management systems. One of my colleagues there, her name was Liz, an Informix employee, and she was writing her first book called Informix Online Performance Tuning. And she and the publisher enlisted me to be one of the tech reviewers for that book. That got me relationship with one of the top publishers in technology, Prentice Hall. And from over the next 5 years, I ended up being a tech editor for numerous books that Prentice Hall was publishing. And then in the late '90s, I had found an opportunity to write my first book entitled Solaris Security. And then from then till now, I've been very fortunate in that publishers mostly come to me saying, would you please write this book or that book for us? And I've just, developed my pet talent and skill and passion for helping tens of thousands of security professionals expand and further their careers, and in turn, helping them to learn how to better protect their information and their organization's information from criminals.
You mentioned Solaris, and of course, that was a Unix-based operating system back from Sun Microsystems, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Back in the 90s, I remember having, I believe it was called a Spark Station on my desk at one point in time.
Yeah.
All this changes. It almost makes cybersecurity rather unique in the rate of change. How do you address that in your books on cybersecurity?
The way I address it in my books is I not only present facts and techniques and tools and standard ways of doing things, but I also endeavor to teach my readers how to learn for themselves and how to find various information sources that will provide reliable, relevant information for them in whatever field and subfield that they might be in. So my mission has been not to just teach them, but to teach them how to fish, because there's only one of me and there's a lot of them. So helping others become self-sufficient and to take responsibility for their career, to move their career forward in a way that they want, and to learn for themselves on how to learn.
I love that servant attitude, and it definitely does help with trying to understand that it's not necessarily easy to learn new technology, new techniques, new processes as it changes so rapidly. And I know your books have helped many studying for various certifications and some other concepts out there. But one of your books is a little bit different. Actually helped me when I was writing information security for small and mid-sized businesses, and that is The Art of Writing Technical Books. Now, tell me a little bit about the difference between writing technical books and other books, other factual books, and what's like one or a couple of advice points that you would give to those in the tech field and it doesn't have to necessarily be cybersecurity, those in the tech field who feel like they have a book within them and want to get it out?
Great question, Greg. I've been wanting to write that book for years, ever since I had written my first couple of books back in the early 2000s. I started becoming a lot of people's best friend. They said, "Hey, Peter, you've been published. Help me get published. I have a book I want to write. Can you help me? How should I proceed with this?" And I helped a lot of people get published. But all along that way, I thought, I've really got to write a book on how to get it done, because I can reach far more people that way. And 2.5, 3 years ago, I finally had a break between books that was big enough that I could and did get that book written and published. It's a niche audience there, technology people who want to get published, but I explain the whole thing from end to end, from idea to the actual writing and organizing and getting your tech all figured out, to working with publishers, negotiating contracts, promoting your book, working with co-authors, and all of the nuts and bolts involved in writing.
Fascinating stuff. And like I said beforehand, it really helped me, and I appreciate so much. I also appreciate you taking the time to join us today on Tech Talk. It's been informative. We'll have to have you back sometime.
Absolutely. Been my pleasure, Greg. And I'm looking forward to watching other episodes of your show.
And we'll be right back after these messages.